There are no accidents. The universal law of cause and effect states that for every effect, there's a definite cause. And likewise, for every cause, there's a definite effect. Hello again, everybody. I'm Eli's dad with Project Eli, where we educate, lead, and inspire. And today we're moving on to our next universal law in detail, the law of cause and effect. And we're going to get a little help today from Adam Szynski, who wrote a really nice article that I'm using to kind of help me go along with this law a little bit, okay, to help you out. Now, your thoughts, behaviors, and actions create specific effects that manifest and create your life as you know it. And if you're not happy with the effects that you've created, then you must change the causes that created them in the first place. Change your actions and you change your life. Transform your thoughts and you'll create a brand new destiny. Now, these causes are the decisions we make and the actions we take on a daily basis. Now, whether our decisions seem small and rather insignificant, like going right to YouTube or Facebook or, whatever social media there is, or whether they're significant and transformational in nature, it doesn't matter. Each and every decision we have made and action we've taken has set events into motion, creating predictable and specific effects that we're now experiencing in our lives. This basically means that achieving success in any field of endeavor is predictable and can be repeated if we are aware of what we're doing, which essentially means that if you make the right decisions and take the right action, you'll undoubtedly achieve the success you envision for your life, whether you're directly aware of it or not. As a consequence, the law of cause and effect brings to light the idea that success can be modeled once we're aware of what we want. All we got to do is find out what successful people do, and we'll be able to do what they do to achieve the success that they've attained in their own lives. Conversely, when you model unsuccessful people, cause and effect means that you'll mirror their results. Once again, a law is a law is a law. The law does not determine good or evil. If you perform certain actions, you're going to get certain results. That's what makes them a law. Now, however, finding out what successful people do is only the beginning, because you also have to identify, when you choose these successful people, their decisions, their habits, their beliefs, their values, their emotions, their behaviors, and their actions. Now, I'm going to kind of use some of my experiences to illustrate this point to make it a little bit easier to understand, all right? Now, in my life, I've had a number of different mentors. The very first mentor that I had of substance, of significance, was just about about a year or so right after I got out of college. I moved from the East Coast to the West Coast, tried to get a teaching job, was a substitute teacher, got a little bit of a teaching job, and then they had summer. During the summer, California had a big tax revolt, and my job got cut. So I had a job, and I got myself a job in sales with a gentleman named Mr. Mort Mutnick, and it completely changed my life. I made much more money in the 3 months during the summer than I made like the entire year teaching school. So that was kind of a good thing. The other thing was Mr. Mutnick, and I want to compare, I'm going to go over with you three different people. Mr. Mutnick, if I'm comparing him to a basketball coach, is kind of like John Wooden, who was the coach of UCLA. Sort of like, the older, he was in his late 60s, early 70s, older, wiser, confident man. And once he saw that I had a little bit on the ball, I did what he told me to do and was successful with it, he kind of liked that. He would pull me aside every morning, and we'd sit and we would talk, and he would go over things with me every single day. And he went over the basics. Just the same way as John Wooden, the coach of UCLA, he would start off his practices every year. And you got to remember, UCLA recruited top flight basketball players. They won 7 or 8 championships in a row. They were a tremendously successful program. He started off his practices every year by saying, boys, this is how you put on your socks, all right? He started with the basics, and he went over basic after basic after basic after basic. That was John Wooden. That was also Mort Mutnick. He sat down with me as the older, wiser man and went over the basics. That and once again, and when you find a mentor, when you find someone that can teach you those things and you incorporate them into your life, it changes you. All right, and once again, it's not just the actions, it's the habits, the beliefs, the values, the emotions, the behaviors, and of course the actions. But I mean, these are the things that change a person. All right, so Mr. Mutnick was my first mentor that I want to talk about. The second mentor I want to talk about is a gentleman named Bob Anderson. And if I were comparing him to a basketball coach, I'd have to compare him to the one and only Bobby Knight. Bobby Knight was the coach of Indiana, and he was a very volatile coach. He was a no-nonsense guy. He had last undefeated college basketball team, and he was known just for being old school, tough, and a bit profane, if you will, and very direct. And he was a dictator. No question about it. He was a dictator. And you did it his way. He knew how to do it. And he would let you know in no uncertain terms. And he would yell at you. And he would maybe throw some F-bombs at you. All right? But he was a guy that had inside, he is a guy, he's still alive. He's a guy that was very, very loyal to you. And if you worked with him and you did what he said, and most of the time you would be successful, he was loyal to you beyond belief. And he would take care of, he would help you out with, once you got out of school, I mean, very famous for one of his players got into a car accident, and Bobby Knight really helped this guy out. The guy was never able to walk again. And so I mean, that kind of loyalty. Bob Anderson's the same way. He knew how to get the job done. This is how you get it done. I don't want to hear any guff. You do it this way. Famously, the vein would pop out in his neck. He would get angry. But the key thing is, when you work with people like that, is to listen to what they're saying and not how they're saying it. All right? Filter that out, because you're going to run into people like that. All right? And once again, I had the opportunity of living in Bob Anderson's house for 2 months with he and his wife. I lived there, and he worked with me on a daily basis, took me for breakfast, and then we'd go to a couple of offices, and he worked with me personally. And I learned his habits, I learned his beliefs, I learned his values, I learned his emotions. And it changes you, right? It changes you when you're able to incorporate. You can't just copy the actions. All right, there were other people that got sent to work with Bob Anderson. They weren't fortunate enough to live in his house for 2 months. When you live with somebody like that, you get to see why they think a certain way, the stuff they watch on TV, the comments that they make. All right, I remember we watched the movie Wall Street, and the Michael Douglas character was kind of like a tough guy, business person, very wealthy. And Charlie Sheen wanted to copy him so he could make all his money. That was his goal, to become Michael Douglas in this movie. And one of the things he says to Michael Douglas says to Charlie Sheen one day, he says, if you can't do that, start sending out resumes. And Bob Anderson took that line, he went, start sending out resumes. I'm going to use that. Start sending out resumes. All right? I mean, that's the kind of, you get those kind of personality things when you're close with somebody. So once again, having a mentor, having someone to model is important. But once again, it's not just copying the actions, because there were other people that would copy his actions. I would see them and I would notice their mannerisms when they would come back from training with Bob, and they had the mannerisms, but they didn't have the rest of it. They didn't have the values, they didn't have the emotions, they didn't have the beliefs, the habits, right? These are the important things. The third mentor that I had that I want to share with you is a gentleman named Jeff Waspy. Now, Jeff Waspy is like kind of the Ward Cleaver, if you will, family man of mentors that I've known. All right, he was not old man like Mort Mutnick. He was, 5 or 6 years or 7 years older than I. He had a marketing company. All right, not a marketing. He had an office and was working with a big insurance company, same one that I had worked with before. That's how we hooked up in the first place. And what he was a systems guy. He developed systems. That was his specialty. He wanted to do something, make actions that were repeatable, that were going to always work, so that you could just plug someone in from the street if they had even halfway kind of good ability, and it would work. And boy, was he successful at it. As a matter of fact, the big insurance company would always lean on him. They'd say, here we have a new product. What we'd like you to do is develop a system. And one of the virtues of working with Jeff was I was the guinea pig. So he would take me and say, all right, this is the system I want to have. Here it is, Eli's dad. Go out in the field and work with it. And let's go over and we'll fine tune it. And that's what I learned from Jeff Waspy, was to have a system. So when you wake up in the morning, what's your system? Is it one that's going to work? You follow what I'm saying? All right, so these are kind of three mentors that I had that taught me quite a bit, that I modeled. For each one of them has different virtues. Now sometimes they have things that I don't want to repeat. I don't want to be yelling at people, giving them the F-bombs like Bob Anderson did. But like I said, you focus on what they're telling you, not necessarily how they go about doing it when you run into somebody like that. But you know, these three gentlemen all taught me quite a bit, and it wasn't just what they did, it was how they did it, their belief system. And they would explain that, and you would see things from a different perspective. Make sure you're looking at a different number of perspectives as you move forward in life. Okay? Now, I have a couple of thoughts for the day that I want to share with you. I went to work I wanted to get some good thoughts for the day with you on this. So let me give you, the first one is from Michael J. Fox, the actor. Everything is cause and effect. If you don't move, nothing will move with you, and nothing will move toward you. The second thought for the day is from Ralph Waldo Emerson. Shallow men believe in luck. Strong men believe in cause and effect. Cause and effect are two sides of one fact. And the final thought is one that I heard personally, Eli, from my very close buddy. We were like this, William Shakespeare. And Billy said to me, Eli's dad, every why hath a wherefore. So remember the cause and effect. This is a law. Nothing happens by accident. Keep this in mind. And because we will never end a meeting on a philosophical note, let's get out there and charge! I'm Eli's dad.